Welcome back to another episode of the Rahway JAG One-on-One podcast series. I'm your host, Nicholas Iwarmi.
And Aljanai Baz.
And in each episode, we talk to inspiring guests who share their stories and journeys to success. Our goal is to bring you motivation, helpful insights, and real-life lessons to keep you going on your own path. Mr. Jeff Brooks, can you tell us about your career journey and how you got started?
Oh, yeah, sure. So first, I'm from the City of Rahway. I graduated here at Rahway High School in the class of 2003. So I walked these same halls you guys walked in. Seems like yesterday. Ended up going to Seton Hall University. I did not know what I wanted to study, so I started off as a history major. And then I realized that I either was going to be a museum director or a history teacher. So I changed my major to mass communications with a minor in political science. Did political science because I was the class treasurer here at Rahway High School. Ended up being the residence dorm vice president in my first year at Seton Hall University. And I kind of just was very interested in politics, man, honestly. So didn't quite get to that career path initially. I definitely landed in a few spots. So what I would say is during college, I ended up becoming a substitute teacher here at Rahway High School. Mm-hmm. So it was something that I think paid maybe like $75 a day after taxes. But it was a lot of fun. I got a chance to get to, have great conversations with some of my teachers. Mr. Kernow being one of them, I would crash his classroom. I'm not sure if he's been retired for like 10 years now, I think. But we'd just have a lot of conversations with him. And what I realized being a substitute teacher is I had the chance to speak to a lot of young men and women about college. I think that when I was in high school, I didn't really get sold on the benefit of college the way that would have spoke to me. For instance, if you are a person who's not a morning person, the last thing I want to hear is, well, college is just more school. Like, tell me that I don't have to take class until 10:30 in the morning because that's what appeals to me. If I don't like calculus or algebra, tell me that I can study things that are particular to my interests. So I was able to have real conversations with high school students about what I thought was cool about college. And what would happen would be a couple years would go by and they would say, man, Mr. Brooks, man, that conversation you had with me got me into college. And truth be told, I don't even remember half those conversations. I was just speaking my truth, right? But that's what you call divine intervention, right? Because sometimes the things that you believe are ordinary, when it's got the blessing of God on it, it's extraordinary, right? And that happens when you're trying to do the right thing. So that really did a lot for my spirit to see that whatever I was saying, people were listening to and taking heed to. So I kind of always wanted to give back and hopefully make a living off of it. But like many people will do in their 20s is that I still try to find myself. So when I graduated college, I worked on the Barack Obama presidential campaign as a field organizer. What is a field organizer? Basically, it is somebody who goes out and tries to get the vote. I was knocking on so many different doors, organizing campaign rallies. We worked every single day, every day, 7 days a week, for 4 months straight, not a single day off. And I was able to see the first black president elected. My grandmother, who was from West Virginia and Kentucky, who lived through segregation, who daughter on a birth certificate says Negro, right? Was able to see the first black president in her lifetime. And that was something that just meant the world to me. So again, that kind of stuck in my heart. But the realities of life came. And I kind of said to myself, well, I'm probably not going to make much money doing this social justice, political pathway. So I pursued a career in sales. Now, if you're not familiar with sales, a lot of times when you're doing high-level sales, it's a monthly quota that you have to meet. And the financial upside is great, especially if you're good at selling. And I like being in front of people, but it is incredibly stressful because the career is what have you done for me lately? You could have brought in the biggest revenue for the company that they've seen in months on the 31st. And now it's December 1st, and now it's okay, now back to the grind, and you're just as good as your last hit, or not even just as good as your last hit. It's just like, what are you doing for me at this moment? I felt that if I stayed in that life, I probably would have had a heart attack before I was 40. So I was thinking of just ways to escape. I ended up doing something totally left field. I had a great friend, one of my best friends, childhood friend, who was a music artist. He was a hip hop artist. And I moved to LA. And I was his manager. And I would say LA was like the best, worst time of my life because I was buying everything from the dollar store, like even toilet paper, which is not cool, eating a whole bunch of TV dinners, having a lot of fun out there, in recording studios. But again, I kind of listened to my heart and said, this wasn't what was resonating within my soul. I knew that I was put on this planet to help people. And, hopefully I could make a living doing the things that I love to do. So after about a year, I moved back to New Jersey. Before I left to LA, I sold my car, right? So I had to come back and, wait tables at the Cheesecake Factory. I had to deliver tuxedos for Dante Tuxedo on St. George Avenue. I had to catch the bus for like a month. It was very humbling. And mind you, I've had 2 college degrees at this point. I'm literally at Cheesecake Factory waiting tables of ex-girlfriends while they're on dates with their new boyfriends, and they say, okay, go get me some more bread. It was a very humbling experience for me. But it taught me that I had to grind. And it also, being a waiter, taught me a great deal of adaptability. Well, when you are working in the restaurant industry or as a waiter, your approach has to be different with a mother of 4 who's trying to take her children out for lunch, or the regular who's on a business break. So I got creative with that, but also got a chance to just see people's demeanors, right? So you're dealing with people. Got back into sales and then said, okay, you know what? I'm done for good. And through it all, I always volunteered. I always, I still would come to the high school and take a couple gigs as a substitute teacher here and there. I ended up getting a job with the City of Rahway as a drug prevention coordinator. And so that was actually my first landing spot in more of the government entity, the government role. And from there, I just realized that, this is where I wanted to be. I felt like I was, working with people, dealing with people. I seen the benefit of working in the government space. And I also was asked by people, they just say, Jeff, man, you have a very distinguished demeanor. Have you ever thought of running for public office? And it's something that I said, hey, you know what? I might want to do that one day. I end up going to screen for a city council position after working in the government space for a little bit. And they said they liked what they heard. They seen that I was involved with the community, but now wasn't the time. So I said, all right, you know what? Rather than take my ball and go home, I'm going to make myself undeniable. I'm going to keep volunteering. I'm going to keep involving myself with the youth. So when it comes back around the following time, it's a no-brainer. And it just so happened that time came sooner than I thought it would. When it came time for the party to pick somebody who can fill in or be appointed to a position as council member, I was the natural choice because I stayed involved. It wasn't so much about the title for me. It was about being in a position where I can help people, being in a position where I can advocate for people. So they kept me in mind, and I took the position. And so now I feel uniquely positioned to continue to do great things, right, on behalf of the residents of the city and the things that I'm passionate about. And I'm blessed to be in a position where it gets me access to fast track certain initiatives that I find can be helpful for people.
What's your inspiration behind what you do?
That's a loaded question, right? I think inspiration comes in all different forms. You know, it can come from something you've seen as a child. It can come from something that you're currently seeing presently. I just want everybody to have the same amount of access to opportunity. And I like to see fairness. So I'll give you a couple examples. One of the reasons why I pursued a career in public service is because I felt the criminal justice system was broken. Some background about my upbringing. So I was born in Elizabeth. I then moved to Rahway when I was 10. For a good portion of my childhood, I was raised by my mother, and for the sake of this conversation, I'll call him my stepfather, but he was somebody who raised me, a man of great respect. His name is Mr. Brooks. So he officially adopted me when I was like 3 years old. So we ended up moving to Rahway, and eventually my mother and my stepfather got divorced, which left a void. I then got familiar with who my biological father was. My biological father was, I come to find out, he was someone who was sent to prison. And the sentence was life with no parole. His offense was he was a very big drug dealer. He was what they considered to be a kingpin. However, when I looked into his case and when I researched it, everyone agreed that his case was unique because it was nonviolent. There was not an instance of violence in his report. Essentially, he was a natural-born entrepreneur who chose the absolute wrong way to enterprise, right? And his circumstances were much different when he was born. This really discouraged me because I felt like I was robbed of the chance of getting to know the person who had a lot to do with who I am as a person. And I was committed to see if I can change that. But when the government says life with no parole, that's what they mean. There's no getting out, right? It doesn't matter if you think that the conviction was just or fair. It is what it is. But for some reason, I couldn't quit on him. And of course, we got familiar with each other. I got the chance to meet him when I was 16. And a lot of the questions that I had about like why I am the way I am was discovered upon getting to know who my pops was. And I also realized that there were so many other people in similar situations, maybe not as dramatic. My father's case was incredibly big. He's got his own Wikipedia page, and by the grace of God, he just has been released as of September 30th. So I can talk about that as well. And that was after 36 years of being incarcerated. It was a really long time. But that's been one of my inspirations, has been to advocate for people who society has given up on. I think everybody deserves a second chance. I think if we're being honest, many of us would do things that can get us in serious trouble at some point in our lives. It's just our luck sometimes. Our luck determines whether or not things go, like how many people drive 90 miles per hour in the car at some point when they're in the car, right? A lot of people do it. Most people don't die, but many people do. That's what you call luck, right? So I recognize that many people do things that they probably shouldn't do. It doesn't mean that their lives should be ruined forever, especially not just the lives of that person, but the families. Because when you have somebody incarcerated, it doesn't just impact the person who's behind the bars, but it's the family member. It's the family that now, rather than having two incomes for the household, they got one income. It's not able to see both of your parents. It determines your area code. It determines if you actually have enough money in the household to afford to have breakfast in the morning, or if that breakfast is bacon, eggs, and toast, or cinnamon toast crunch. Which, I have a lot of different opinions about what nutrition does to your ability to take in information and be educated. That's also the things that I look at and what I want to see for the future. I want to see everybody have equal access to the same type of opportunities. So that's just part of my inspiration right there. But it changes all the time. I mean, you meet people, you hear their stories, and being in this position, I'm flattered that people believe that I can help them, right? People are humble enough to be vulnerable in your space and say, "Can you help me?" It takes a lot for a person to ask for help. So, but when someone does ask you for help, you have to listen to them, and you have to listen to their story. And for whatever reason, I got a heart to where it's like, I just don't want to hear your story. I want to help change your circumstance. And again, I'm not where I want to be ultimately, but I know I'm in the pathway to where I can help more and more people as I climb and climb.
What were some challenges you faced in your career, and how did you overcome them?
So I would say right now, my career is going really well. But I think the challenges come from, sometimes you got to look inside and see and be honest with yourself, right? I realize, like right now, I'm finishing my master's. I am graduating summa cum laude, right? That's like 3.8 grade point average or higher.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. When I was in high school, that was not the case. I wasn't a bad student. I might have gotten a 3.0, but I did not apply myself the same. So the results I got were mediocre. They were very average because I did not put my all into it. I didn't dedicate my full focus in things. So when I realized that my work ethic wasn't as strong as it could be, and I needed to work on that and demand excellence from myself, that's when I started seeing better results. So I think the challenges came. I used to blame everybody else for, my shortcomings. And look, sometimes you work for some crappy bosses. Some people don't like you just because. But life isn't fair. At this point, what I try to do is I make myself undeniable. I try to overperform. So where if you overlook me, you look stupid and you're doing yourself a disservice. So the moment I started to look inward is the moment that I started to see better results.
Where does change come from as a person? Like you said, it's well, I'm gonna speak from like personal It's better to blame somebody for what's going on in your life, but how do you change what's going on in your life? Like how do you say, oh, I'm tired of this, I'm tired of that, let me go make a change? Where do you start in your community?
So yeah, no, absolutely. But there's many different things about your question, right? Yeah. I think in order to want change, you have to be exposed to better, right? Some people don't seek change because they don't know what else is out there. So it's my hope, and I hear great things. Like just for instance, I just left the classroom with Coach Bunyan just now, and we were talking about a trip that you young guys are taking to D.C. You guys are going to be exposed to different things. So now if you say to yourself, wow, people actually work this way, people actually live this way, then you can work towards that change. But you have to be aware that there's a better outcome. Like, the one thing that we have to do as a society is expose our youth to different options, right? It's one thing to say, oh, don't make money this way, or don't do this. But if I'm not providing you a pathway on how to do better, then like, what do you expect for that person to do? They're going to continue to do what they know. So I think in order to get change, it really requires knowledge and exposure to something better. And yeah, you gotta want better for you. You gotta want better for yourself, and know and understand that, you can't just pray for things. Prayer without works is dead. Everything that you need to do and want to see in life requires work. You can't be afraid of the work. Anybody that's ever gotten anything, there's always help involved. That's for sure, but it does require the work. You can't be afraid from it. You can't run it. There's no escaping it. I mean, if you don't work, you're going to be incredibly average. And
Sure.
average is punishment. That I don't think God put anyone on this planet for them to be average.
Following up on what you're saying, how important is networking and mentorship to help build you?
Yeah. Every job and opportunity that I've gotten at this point, probably in the last 10 to 15 years, has been because I've known somebody. Someone's able to vouch for you.
Yeah.
If we're being realistic, if you take a look at LinkedIn, or if you apply for a job, there's thousands of people applying for the same jobs. It is crazy, right? And there's nothing that's going to set you apart from the next person. I mean, everybody's either going to high school or going to college. Worked at this job for 3 years, you worked at that job for 2 years, you are part of this organization, you were CPR certified, so forth and so, what have you. There's nothing that's going to make your resume really stand out. A lot of times it takes someone to co-sign you, right? And that is done through networking. But that's why it's very important to have manners and look people in the eye, right? And be thankful. I always hear this quote. It says, people won't always remember what you say, but they always remember how you made them feel. So when you interact with people, be nice, be polite, right? Hold your word. Because one day you might need a favor, and people will want to do favors for someone that they know respect them. So again, for every single job that I've gotten or position that I've gotten, it's because I've known somebody. I mean, people don't like to hear it, but that's the way the world works. You have to network. If not, the pathway there is going to take much longer. And you're pretty much just relying on luck. Rather than listen, I know someone who works here. Let me call them and see if I can potentially get an interview. And you know what they'll say? You know what? Hey, Nick, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can get you an interview with this person. I can't guarantee you the job, but at least I get you in front of them. Make sure you do this, and that. I've been fortunate enough to receive those type of tips, and I've gotten to the position where I am now. And God willing, I'm able to do the same thing for other people, and I have. I've been able to get people hired, and maybe it's called shortcutting the process, but at least I could vouch for that person. It's not like I'm taking a bet on a perfect stranger that I don't know. You know somebody, you know their capabilities, and you know if there'll be a good fit. So, yeah, I'd rather work with somebody that I know and somebody that I've seen in action and know how to interact with people. That's just the way life is. Yeah. So networking is not just important, it's vital.
For sure. What's one piece of advice you would give kids on the start their path?
Yeah, as cliche as it says, it sounds like believe in yourself. Like practice makes perfect. Know that you're not an idiot. You're not going to mess it up. And if you second guess yourself, it's okay. I'm telling you, even the greatest people, the greatest performers are uncertain of themselves sometimes. Yeah. But you know what? Do it afraid, do it unsure, but do it. You got to go for it. You have to really go for it. And also just, be honest with yourself. before you try to point the blame at other people, really ask yourself, did I do everything that I needed to do in order to, did I wake up early enough? Did I prepare myself? Did I eat like crap the night before and now I'm not able to run at this particular speed because I decided I wanted to eat cookies before training? Like, you have to ask yourself these questions. And if you can be honest with yourself and hold yourself accountable, you will put yourself in a better position to succeed.
For sure.
Have you ever like made any mistakes in the path that you took, and how did they become lessons if they did?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say there's no such thing as mistakes, only lessons. I definitely, there's things I could have done differently for sure. Like, I think I would have probably did some internships a bit earlier and not focused on just having fun while I was in college, right? Wish I would have, informed myself about investments and credit at an earlier age, I'm grateful to see that at least in education now, there's more emphasis on real life skills, financial literacy, right? How to balance a budget. These are things that I learned a little bit later in life. I'm better positioned than most people. I take a great amount of interest in it, but I wish that I've learned these things a little earlier, But I make good with myself knowing that when I do have a child and any young person I come across, I can pass on that wisdom to say, just look into that, look into financial literacy and just think about your future. I mean, it doesn't take you putting $100 a week out of your paycheck. I mean, you got things like Robinhood where literally you can do a recurring investment of $1, like every couple of days in Bitcoin or Dogecoin or XRP. Like, I'm just naming things. You guys probably are familiar with all the terms I'm talking about. But yeah, you can literally build your wealth that way. Credit will get you a long way. In our neighborhoods, in our background, it's not something that was really emphasized, But yeah, that's probably really. I think I would have put myself in a better position today had I started a little earlier. So